I'm calling this one the talk to someone now sales tool. I think there's a lot of things that exist around this space, but for some reason, I don't see them being used much.
My first idea is this thing called bargain bot. I hadn't realized how much traction Facebook Marketplace has in this region, right?
My next one, I call it AI eGreeting card. And the idea is that you create eGreeting cards using AI.
Over the weekend, I saw Sohail, and then he pivoted into the Gen AI space, and he was coming out with something which was similar to Midjourney. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the $1 Million Idea podcast. Today, it's going to be Ken and myself swapping 2 ideas a piece. And the hope is that, we're getting better episode after episode. So if you liked our last episode with guests, please leave us a comment, write to us, or any sort of feedback will be really appreciated. All right, Ken. So how's it going? How's life?
Good. Raining pretty hard right now. So, just weathering through the flooding stuff.
No, well, stay safe. And so with that, I guess let's get started with our ideas. Do you want to start off today's episode? You go first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm calling this one the talk to someone now sales tool. I think there's a lot of things that exist around this space, but for some reason, I don't see them being used much. And the main issue is that when you try to get leads, for example, we pushed out an email, a bulk email to try to set up calls with potential leads. And we got about 15 to 20 bookings. We used something like Calendly. Everyone booked on my calendar. And then I was all excited, okay, this is a good channel. And then I did some follow-up emails to kind of prep them and say, hey, we got a call coming up. And we did all that. I even personalized it. And then the calls came and the no-show rate was 90%. Right. And I was like, wow, this is such a waste of my time to just be sitting here, reminding these people and then they don't show up. How to fix this problem? And then it got me thinking, were they just not interested at the beginning, or were they interested and they just couldn't follow up? And I think it is that they were interested, but they were interested and then it was the type of thing where they lost their interest very quickly. So I think the key is talk to them when they're interested. And therefore the tool is basically when they see the email, or it could be an ad or whatever, they say they're interested and it just dials someone in the team right away. And whoever is there picks up first. Right. And only they only do a calendar appointment if nobody's able to pick up. So that's the core of the idea.
No, I like it. And you've always been in those. I think there's an impulse also, right? It's very sort of hey, this sounds great, or this is exactly what I was looking for. And then life gets busy. And yesterday I saw something similar. It might have been on Product Hunt, which is as soon as you abandon your cart, and if you filled out your phone number, they actually call you straight away. I don't know how obtrusive that is, but it reminds me of something like what you're saying, because in that moment, you've actually taken the energy to put an item into your cart. And then for whatever reason, you bounce out of there. And in that moment, you're probably the most highly likely to convert. I think that's why abandonment emails also work pretty well, because they fire off straight away.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a loss of context. You're looking at the ad or the landing page, you have a lot of context. Then you book a calendar invite 3 or 4 days later, and all that's on that invite is often you and this random person and the name of the company, and you've kind of forgotten all that context that had you interested. You're just who's this random person on my calendar? I've done that. And then would skip out sometimes. So
it's always been that it's been an expensive thing to do, right? Global availability of someone to speak on the phone. It seems like one of those things that was always for the big companies to have these massive call centers which run 24 hours a day. But now, given that voice AI technology is so good, I wonder whether that's something that could do some of this heavy lifting straight away and then perhaps connect with someone else. In one of our other tools, we use in one of our enterprise software tools, we use this thing called New Relic and PagerDuty. And this is for roll calls for engineers in case something goes wrong. And it's actually built into the system where if XYZ happens in the monitoring system, then everyone's phone numbers is put into a schedule and it'll just call the engineer if something goes wrong. So it can be done. So I'm sure companies can organize themselves to get this done as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the value here is not that this is some new technology. Like I've implemented help support, including, calling software for a number of times in the past years, like this technology to kind of dial and then someone picks up out of a queue. Like that's been around for a decade. But these softwares are like things like, like they're large enterprise software, usually built for call centers. They're expensive. There are a lot of implementation, and someone needs to do like the Calendly version where it's like free to start. Like that's what's missing. Everyone's using Calendly or some equivalent, like, and they don't have this functionality, and they're sitting there like with all these no shows.
And it's something that you could probably easily sell back to Calendly if there is something that you build like very nice on the side that can plug in to Calendly, because I would assume that their North Star metric would be meetings that were successfully had on the system. Because if you have a meeting on the system successfully, then that's probably something. But I guess they can't measure it because, like you said, you were on the call, but Calendly doesn't know that the other person didn't show up.
Yeah, yeah. Like I see some of this kind of stuff in I use Lunch Club, and like they kind of like have some logic that if the person doesn't show up, and then they ask why and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I think stuff like this.
Well, that's cool, man. Along I don't know whether it's the same lines, but my first idea is this thing called bargain bot. So over the weekend, my wife was getting rid of a lot of junk around the house. There's all of these things that are always there. And, you put them in boxes, they go away, and then they just sit in some storeroom for a very long time. So she was like, okay, I'm going to get rid of stuff. I hadn't realized how much traction Facebook Marketplace has in this region, right? Like everything sort of like goes on to Facebook Marketplace. So she put a couple of things on a Facebook Marketplace, and then her phone was ringing off the hook. It was like message, 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 message. And, there were so many messages coming in. And then at one point she was like, okay, I give up. This is just too difficult. Because people would just message stuff like, is this available? Can you tell me the size of this? And there's these very repetitive questions that were coming up. And so that's where I came up with the idea for Bargain Bot, which is that she would take the picture, because even the process of uploading them to the marketplace is still, I think that's one of the reasons people don't do it. It's like, take it out, take a picture, upload it to Facebook or Craigslist or wherever you're getting rid of stuff. And some of the stuff she was just giving away for free, which probably increased the number of people that were pinging her to pick it up because they wanted it. And I just thought it would be cool if you could take a picture of the items, and if the AI tool could look at it, it could clean up the image, do everything. So it would have professional images. It would have the API connection of Facebook Marketplace or a bunch of marketplaces where it would just also post the ad and try to figure out like, okay, here's what it does. Over time, it'd probably have a pretty good idea as to what you could sell it for as well, if it has more data about ads. And then simply when people respond, I would have like a Chrome extension that would then just reply on your behalf using AI instead of a human being. And only after a conversation gets much deeper into it, like you threw it, okay, I want to buy this, would the AI bot sort of like ping the user and say, user is interested, sort of like, take over from here. So that was my idea. And I would do it in a free, basic, premium sort of like way. And free would be like post your free things for things and maybe have up to like 10 chats. And then it would be like $9.99. I thought about like taking a percentage of the sale, but it would be too difficult to do and to track that. So I just thought a plain vanilla sort of like subscription would probably do it. And if you take the $20 model and if you're selling a bunch of things, then it would have like maybe like GPT-3 versus GPT-4 type of business, right? The AI would get a lot stronger in the $20 version. And then again, you need somewhere in the orders of magnitude of like 800-ish people paying you per month, and 8,000, sorry. And you were closer to the $1 million a year. So you need volume in this. But actually, when I looked at the marketplace, these marketplaces are very busy. So that's the idea of bargain bot again, which is like this back and forth conversation happening when you're trying to sell stuff.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm aware of Facebook Marketplace, like how big it is, because when I moved from Boston, this is years ago, back in 18 or so, 2018, we sold almost everything in our house on Facebook Marketplace. And it was so fast and there was so much demand. And I think the technology, like I've seen other marketplaces do like what you're saying, where you more or less just take a photo and it recognizes what it is and it posts it. Like it does everything for you. So I really like that. I think one other thing that I've heard a fair bit is like there's some danger and fraud involved in kind of meeting these people. So like if you also had some intelligence about who is this person, like is it a real Facebook profile, blah, blah. Like I think that's another big value add, because I think especially women, like because of some bad stories, like they sometimes hesitate to do this. And the last thing I thought was really interesting, like the biggest hurdle for me when we were doing this in Boston was that like you got to meet these people, because like the courier costs would kill your entire margin if you'd use a courier. But like in Thailand, where you have Grab, courier, like that's nothing. And so, these cities where delivery cost is cheap, like I think you could really build like a very interesting business.
No, that reminds me of a business that I came across when I came to Dubai for the first time. It's called Cart Low, and it's a marketplace for secondhand or near pristine products. A lot of electronics, so everything from fridges to washing machines to PS5s and stuff like that, and all of these things. But what these people do is that they're like, if you have electronics or stuff which you had the box for and things like that, they would actually ask you to take a picture of it, send it over to their app. They would review it, and then they would come pick it up. And if it sells, pass you a commission on that. And I was surprised to learn from a lot of people that they were actually doing a considerable amount of business in the region. And I connected with the entrepreneur as well. And the business is growing rapidly. I think in the US, there have been a few companies like this, especially in the electronic space, where they refurbish it and they can get rid of it, because then it becomes a distribution game as well. Because a lot of the time, like, I wouldn't know how much my 2017 MacBook is worth right now. And these people do. And I think like that's a pretty big business also. Like you said, it reminded me of the middleman, where if you can also take away that pain, then it's like a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. And like there's a cost involved in like your time figuring out how much a 2017 MacBook in that condition, like, and so for like a lot of us, like we just wouldn't invest that, and therefore we don't do it. Outsource that to someone where it's worth their time.
And that's why businesses like Take My Junk sort of like businesses are also sort of like reasonably sized businesses, because these people are picking up stuff and taking it away. But I didn't realize how big the refurbishment industry is, because these people take it up and they refurbish, and then they again have distribution to get rid of it. And it just goes to show you how important it is. And that's why I think like you said a couple of things: the time of the marketplace, and also the difficulty of putting in chatting with all of these people. And now it makes complete sense why these intermediaries have come in and sort of like made margin in these areas.
Yeah, and I think the kids' use cases, like you're just like kids are going through their clothes and their toys like every year or two, like it's just not useful to them, and you can keep moving that stuff around and keep making money out of it.
Yeah, my brother had a kid. She's a year old now, but he was telling me about all the cycling of stuff, like all the stuff that you buy when a baby is really small, and then it outgrows it. Like it could be anything from um, these bassinets to upgrading the cots and other sort of like things and toys, and like you said, clothes are the fastest. We have exposure to this through our Baby Planet sort of like company, and I just see the regular churn that you see with kids' clothes. And there's a lot of waste over here as well, right? Like, when you are not recycling these, then I would assume that you're also hurting the planet considerably.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know the numbers, but I would guess that still to this day, even we made progress on some of these things, but still like it's just like the greatest portion of it just gets thrown into the junk still, you know. So I think the problem is still there to be solved.
All right. So with that, let's move on to idea number 3 now.
My next one, I call it AI e-greeting card. And the idea is that you create e-greeting cards using AI. You can just make them like pictures and text, but it's tailored to the person that is receiving it. Maybe it has something special about you inside it. And you can do video. So like you can, choose different AI videos that it'll be a video tailored to kind of your relationship with that person. And this came up as like it was my wife's birthday just a little while ago, and I had bought like a standard card, and it wasn't like tailored to like my relationship with her at all. And I was actually trying to think what to say. So I was like on ChatGPT and like asking it, like, what should I tell my wife? We're married for 11 years. Like I wanted to like come up with something different. And I was like, wow, like, someone could just do this as a platform. And I use e-greeting cards because I live abroad and I have my parents living abroad. And these platforms, like I use a couple free ones, I've used pay ones, but they're still bad. Like they don't use AI to my knowledge. I think this is a good space and people are willing to pay. And I think like this whole AI thing opens up a new approach there.
I actually have seen this a bit on flower side. So I was sending flowers to my wife one day, and they had this little box, would you like to say something, right? And it's always like, okay, what do we say? Like, you're right, there's some standard stuff. Or if there's some even special occasion, you sort of like write the occasion and then you sign that off. And I remember seeing this button which says create text. And so you would press it, and it was basically the things on these GPTs that were coming up with things. But like you said, you need to provide it some level of context as well. So I think like if you do it the pure way, I don't think like you get, like you said, very apt responses, which would make it, and then people can tell, right? Like the whole deal is like, if you just take a stock GPT response, like a lot of people, including your wife or your girlfriend, is going to be able to tell. But yeah, I remember greeting cards are like a huge segment. I wonder whether like majors like the Hallmark-ish sort of like things, someone buys one of these companies up and really does it up, because even I would imagine the graphic of the card can be customized completely for you to send a photograph of your wife or a holiday, and just sort of like make it a variation of that. And that would be a lot more personalized as well. And then you could do that completely with a tool. I would pay for that for sure, and then I would pay for that to be printed and sent to the house as well, like if that could be done.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things like you almost want to pay for it. Like if you like your wife and like you're just like cheaping out and doing some free cheap. The other thing that came to mind as you were talking, There are some businesses that I almost think were like no-brainer Facebook businesses that they never were succeeded on, or they never tried to do. One was like gift cards, because they know your birthday, they know all your major events. But the other one was this greeting card business, and like, Facebook. Every time I'm doing a post and it's someone's birthday, they like pull up all the photos that we're together in, and sometimes they create these videos which are like photos of me and that person over the last 10 years. And like, I love these things. Like, I've teared up a couple times looking at me, my son. So I think, like, I don't know how the Facebook API works, but if you could pull some of that, put it into a platform, and then like do a little bit of that, I think it would be like really interesting.
And I think the tools, again, are here for you to do all of this stuff, like pulling stuff in. I think my last idea talks about this, but I think like even with tools like Canva, you can do so much now, and they're just going to get better and better, because I think like the bar for what it took to be a designer is coming down, with the bar to be a developer is coming down. And all of these tools are just acting as these accelerants for people's careers. And it's just a matter of unlocking imagination now. That's about it. Cool. So that brings me to the last and somewhat related idea. Over the weekend, I saw Sohail, and this guy is a YC-backed founder. He's been pivoting his business quite a bit. I think he was first trying to come up with a browser that was wicked fast, and he wasn't able to pull it off. So engineering, very, very strong. And then he pivoted into the Gen AI space, and he was coming out with something which was similar to Midjourney called Playground. And I think that space has got very difficult, and Midjourney is just so much further ahead of its competition. And over the weekend, he relaunched something called playground.com, which is essentially what I would imagine the future of Canva to look like, with a few more things. So basically what happens is that you can go to this site, and let's take, for example, logo. Like even when we were coming up with a logo for our sort of like podcast over here, you either go to a designer, you go through iterations, and you sometimes get what you want. But in this site, you go, and there are all these pre-existing logos that are already there. Let's say 100 logos. And then let's say that we want a new logo for $1 Million Ideas. And we would find a logo that we like, and we would say like, okay, I like the thesis of this logo. Now make me a logo similar. Or we could upload our current $1 Million Idea logos and tell it to create iterations of this. And where it succeeds over other things is that for DALL-E, for example, I would never get the text right for GPT. It would always make some degree of problem, because it can't read like those letters, right? And so it doesn't know when it's made a mistake. But they fixed it with Playground, and I was super impressed. So the quick idea is that I would set up an agency called the AI Playground Design Agency. And essentially what this agency would do is that we would start with a YouTube channel, and essentially I would go to things like Playground and Midjourney and all of these Gen AI tools, and I would simply record myself creating assets in these tools. And I would say, okay, if you want to create a logo and this, here are the cool hacks that you could do to get these logos made. If you want to make a t-shirt mockup, here's how I would do it. I would not restrict myself to Playground. I would include Midjourney. I would even include Canva and things like that, like to get a certain task done. And the whole deal is that hopefully people will look at me doing all of this, and instead of paying the subscriptions, which add up, like Playground is like $15 a month, Midjourney is $20 a month, Canva is another sort of like, once you go into the premium areas. So instead of someone paying $50, I would have like this agency where it would be like per design, or it would be one of these unlimited design packages to sell, like $1,000. And that would be much lower than the existing design unlimited services. And the only reason why I think you could do it for 1,000 is that the effort required to generate these images has gone way down. So means that, we'd be able to manage a lot more load much faster. And at $1,000 a month, you need 83 customers essentially to start making a $1 million business. Lead gen would come through the YouTube channel. You would have all of these tools in the background that you would generate. And that's about it. It's been done many, many times before. And I heard a variation of this idea on Greg Eisenberg's latest podcast as well, that he was talking about like Canva specifically. But I would go much deeper than just Canva. I would use some of these new tools as well. And I think that if there was a business, and I used to design back in the day, this seems like an ideal business for an enterprising 27-year-old to put together and start making their first 5K, 10K as well. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff there. Like, I definitely resonate. I mainly use Dolly because it's free, and I think I tried Midjourney once, but Dolly was free, and I was subscribing to ChatGPT, so the Dolly was like unlimited for a while. I don't find it's very efficient at getting me what I want, right? And I'm often thinking like I would love to just find what other people created and like iterate off that or use something similar. So I love this idea of like, okay, like don't play with the prompts all yourself, because there's also like you got to wait, 30 to 40. So I only try like once or twice before I just say, okay, this is good enough. So I'm often like Google image searching for mid-journey images about something. And that's often how I get my images more than creating it myself, because I don't want to spend too much time on these prompts. So I think there's definitely something there to like people cannot make the stuff that they want well on their own. And if there's a tool that does that well and they get inspiration and they can then just tweak something that someone else did successfully, I think all that is awesome. The thing that I would challenge you on is a year and a half, I was looking into all these like YouTube channels for Midjourney and stuff. That is ultra competitive. So like, I would not like if your assumption is like you're gonna make some YouTube videos and they're gonna pop, like that's like you got people doing that for like 4 or 5 years and they've got big channels and stuff. So I would just I think you got to think more about like, all right, how are you gonna like differentiate stuff there?
Yeah, fair point. I think a lot of people have discovered the power of YouTube. I saw like Ronaldo's joined YouTube and was the fastest person to reach 50 million sort of like subscribers and just growing rapidly. I think people have discovered finally like this is where people spend most of their time now. Like with the shows I hear, everything is there. Here's the interesting side bit about YouTube. Like I think like in developing countries like Pakistan, they have like their version of soap operas and dramas that they play in the evening. I was talking to someone and they were telling me how the distribution has moved more towards on YouTube than it is on traditional cable, because a lot of people are just on their devices and just watching dramas and stuff like that. It's more available. People just generally don't subscribe to cable or these channels anymore. And these videos go live and they get million plus views in less than an hour as soon as they get live. And these channel providers have unlocked massive advertising just on through this medium as well. So that just reminded me, like, you've got to come up with some sort of like variation, because the true here's how to do a AI sort of like cover. But I wonder whether the experience would be like because I've Googled this before, which is, generate images on Midjourney prompt tutorials, like lots of them over there. But if I was to search something like optimize logo in Midjourney or stuff like that, or something like that. So maybe it would be like variations of that. Like if you want to get something done, because when I saw Playground, you can actually see these logos and then the prompts are not that difficult to figure out. And so I think there's some degree of like generate in Playground, fix up in Canva, and then basically, so there's some sort of like conveyor belt situation that's going on over here. It's difficult to pop on this channel now, but I think like it's just going nicher as the play to go, right? Even what we're doing right now, like we could have another startup podcast, but podcasts about specific ideas creates uniqueness because we're not talking about the same ideas. And so yeah.
Yeah, one other thing I was going to mention, I think SEO like SEO on YouTube, I thought it was going to be a big like opportunity a couple years ago, and I had vidIO, which a lot of YouTube makers. I think I even had the paid version, and I was like, all right, like what are the queries that have a lot of people looking for it and don't have much competition? Because that could be an approach. Like that was kind of like the approach. Hey, look for when people ask something a bit different. But I was surprised. Like I tried that for a while and it didn't really work. And I have a feeling a lot of other people are also kind of doing that because vidIO they make like if you're in a certain niche, they're going to surface all those opportunities to everybody. Yeah, I think YouTube's gotten pretty hard to crack. Like you got to just be good at like creating a brand on there.
Yeah. And I think it's like a brand, and then it comes down to content quality also, because I think just like TV, like people are just flicking through a whole bunch of things, not really sticking. But I think content quality also, like if you have like decent content quality, plus you have that consistency over a period of time, then yeah, because I think a lot of people get discouraged considerably fast with YouTube as well. And, it's like, I mean, I've been on this bandwagon with coming out with video, trying to do it consistently. It's hard. Your first videos suck also. So you're like, do I still want to go through this pain and keep at it? So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That one other thing I think about that is like, yeah, I watch a lot. I watch like Lex Friedman, I watch Joe Rogan, I watch Greg Eisenberg, I watch MFM. And the thing that's consistent is like, I like the way they think. And so the guests that they bring, and like you want to spend time with them. And these people, you end up knowing more about them than like anybody else in your live phone. Like there's some handful of small friends that like I know more about them. Other than that, like I spend more time with these guys. And so you just got to think about, all right, like who's my audience for which I can potentially be that person, and why would they say that about me, right? And like you just got to be clear about that, I think. And it's for some people like your niche is not gonna be massive, but yeah.
Cool. It's giving me inspiration now to start like finding a list of ideas for YouTube sort of like growth hacks and just YouTube strategies and tools that people could use, because I would assume that that's again like a really hot. I know that there are a lot of like YouTube sort of like products which help you with thumbnail inspiration, to split test thumbnails across things. Like YouTube, when you get into the weeds of it, is actually become very sophisticated what the best people are actually doing to get it done. So I wonder whether there's a 80-20 over here with a small product that you could also serve for a lot of new creators coming onto the platform to help them get started, because I would assume that this would only get larger over time.
Yeah, for sure. I've watched Mr. Beast get interviewed a number of times, and yeah, I think he launched a tool that kind of uses some of his learnings. But I was just so impressed, like when he talks about how he learned YouTube with two other friends, and they literally had like a call on Skype every morning that would sometimes last the entire day. And just like they spent 3 years like this. And I was like, what the hell could you be analyzing for 3 years, like half the day on a Skype call with two other people that are as crazy as you? But like, it just shows you like there's that level of depth.
And it's in anything, like whether that be coming out with videos, whether that be coming out with world-class design. Like when you speak to people who are obsessed about their craft, then they just go so much deeper, and then you just realize what it actually takes. Because what everyone believes is like, okay, I'm going to turn on this camera, I'm going to do this, but the way that they analyze their hooks, as I've been watching back our episodes, there's definitely stuff that I'm noticing with the way that I am looking at the camera, with the way that I am talking, my energy levels. Like you got to do so many things. And once you get all of these small pieces right, then suddenly people are like, oh, that person's really good on camera, but they can't tell you why.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Well, we have some inspirations. We have a few more guests coming on in the next couple of episodes, so that should be fun. Next episode, I'm going to be in Singapore, so that should be fun as well and a bit different. So until then, Ken, thanks a lot, and I look forward to chatting next week then.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, see ya. Bye.